Good evening and welcome to the September 4, 2024 meeting of the Clearwater City Council. This time I'll call the meeting to order. If you wish to address the council tonight, please complete a comment card. The comment cards are located next to the clerk to the right side of the dais. When called to speak, please hand your card to the clerk. This time I'd like to call forward Chaplain Danny Champagne from the Clearwater Fire Department and ask you all to rise and remain standing for our prayer and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, as we gather here today in service to our community, we come before you with humble hearts and open minds. We seek your guidance and wisdom as we embark on the task before us. Lord, I ask that you bestow your wisdom upon these dedicated individuals who serve our community with such commitment. Grant them the clarity to address the need and the hopes of those they represent, and the compassion to approach each issue with understanding and empathy. May their discussions be marked by thoughtful consideration and mutual respect, fostering a spirit of unity and collaboration. In moments of challenge, provide them with strength to persevere with integrity, and in moments of disagreement, guide them towards resolution with grace and kindness. Please bless their efforts and decisions so that they may contribute to the well-being and prosperity of our entire city. May their actions reflect your love and commitment to justice, ensuring a bright future for all. Thank you for this opportunity to support and uplift their work. May your presence be felt in every discussion and decision made today. Ask a special blessing on this council, our family and friends, our first responders, the community, and our city. In the precious name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain. This time, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin tonight, I'd like to introduce our dais. To my far left is our City Clerk, Rosemary Call.
Good evening.
To her right is our City Attorney, David Margolis.
Good evening.
To his right is Councilmember Mike Menino.
Good evening.
To my left is Vice Mayor David Albritton.
Good evening.
To my immediate right is Councilmember Lena Teixeira.
Good evening.
To her right is Councilmember Ryan Cotton.
Good evening.
To his right is our City Manager, Jennifer Poirier.
Good evening.
And to her right is Assistant City Manager Dan Slaughter. With that, we will move to item 4.1 on the agenda. This time I'd like to call forward Senator Nick DeSegli to the podium. And I would like to read a proclamation in honor of Hunger Action Month. Whereas September is recognized as Hunger Action Month, a time dedicated to raising awareness about food insecurity and mobilizing communities to take action to end hunger, and whereas in Pinellas County, approximately 11% of residents experience food insecurity, with nearly 140,000 individuals struggling to access sufficient, nutritious food on a regular basis, and whereas food insecurity impacts our community's health, well-being, and economic stability, affecting children, seniors, and families alike, and whereas it is essential to acknowledge the hard work of local organizations such as Hope Villages, who distributes nearly 6 million pounds of food throughout Pinellas County each year and is committed to providing critical support to those in need, and whereas collective efforts to combat food insecurity through education, advocacy, and community involvement can make a significant difference in the lives of those affected. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Rector, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2024 to be Hunger Action Month. I encourage all residents to participate in local initiatives such as food drives, fundraising events, and volunteer opportunities to support our communities' fight against hunger. Thank you, Senator DeSegli. You're also CEO of Hope Villages of America, and appreciate you being here tonight and accepting this proclamation on behalf of the City Council. I invite you just to say a few words on behalf of the organization.
Yeah, I appreciate, Mayor. Thank you, Council, Administration. Thanks for having me here today. Yes, I am the state senator here in Pinellas County. I have that title for 24 hours a day, but tonight, which also a title I have 24 hours a day, is President and CEO of Hope Villages of America, and that's why I'm here this evening. These proclamations are important to get out the awareness. Last night I was in Treasure Island. Our CEO, Melinda, right now is at the town of Bel Air. We've got Pinellas County tomorrow. And I can tell you, not because I'm here in Clearwater, the reason why this is one of the most important proclamations for us, for me personally, is that Hope Villages has been located in Clearwater since 1967. So your constituents, your residents, my constituents, those are folks that we serve. We serve around 150,000 of those folks every single year, whether that's through our food bank, whether that's through our domestic abuse services, and of course through our affordable housing initiatives. So we want to create that awareness for the public. Food insecurity is a big issue here in Pinellas County. It's a big issue across our state, across our country. But we play a very vital role here at Hope Villages of America to make sure that those in need are served. They're served with dignity. They're served with the hope of finding a better circumstance and situation for themselves and their families. And so I greatly appreciate the support of many of you personally. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the organization, and most importantly, it means a lot to the folks that we serve. So thanks so much for having me tonight, and I will be on my way swimming back to Indian Rocks Beach tonight. So thank you.
On behalf of the city too, just want to thank not just you, but your staff and all the thousands of volunteers that help you get the food out to the folks that need it and organize that. And it's a big operation, and it touches so many lives here in Clearwater and throughout Pinellas County. So thank you to your staff and all your volunteers for what you do as well. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
with that, is it this to you?
Thanks, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to see you, sir. Thanks.
Let's give Hope Villages of America a round of applause. Now we'll move to item 4.2 on the agenda, Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month proclamation. And this time I'd like to call forward Claudette Carlin and from the Selma Mastery Ovarian Cancer Foundation. She's the chair. Is she here tonight? Yeah. Is she not? Someone else here?
I'm here.
Oh, well, you can come forward for us, yeah.
She was in Treasure Island, so like.
Okay,
He
well,
said she might have been swimming or
wow, very
decided not to swim from Treasure Island. I'm Carrie Kreisman.
good to have you here
So
tonight. I'll
we
read
were
the
both supposed to
proclamation and
be
we'll
here.
invite you to say a few
Okay,
words.
thank you.
okay? Whereas ovarian cancer is the fifth leading cause of cancer deaths of women in the United States and causes more deaths than any other gynecologic cancer, and whereas in the United States, a woman's lifetime risk of being diagnosed with ovarian cancer is about 1 in 78, and whereas the American Cancer Society estimates 19,680 cases of ovarian cancer will be newly diagnosed in 2024, and 12,740 individuals will die from the disease nationwide, including 1,650 new cases and 1,050 deaths in Florida. And whereas the 5-year survival rate for ovarian cancer is 50%, and survival rates vary greatly depending on the stage of diagnosis. And whereas while the mammogram can detect breast cancer, and the pap smear can detect cervical cancer, there is no reliable early detection test for ovarian cancer, so it is critical to raise awareness. Now therefore, I, Bruce Rector, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2024 to be Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Clearwater. And as I shared with you, it's personal to me. My mother died at the age of 45 from ovarian cancer. It's way too young, and I know that it has improved some over the years, but it's still a very deadly disease for women.
Most
and so it was very important to me to do this proclamation for you and invite you to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Rector. And again, I extend my condolences. I know it's been some time, but it never
ends the feeling of loss. So thank you for having me here and council as well. Yes, it is the deadliest of all gynecological cancers. And locally, Claudette Carlin chairs the Selma Mastery Ovarian Cancer Foundation, and they provide support to women undergoing treatment. And they have a Race for the Cure later this month that raises money. From my perspective, 5 years ago this month, I wound up in the emergency room in Monterey, California, while I was supposed to be on a family trip with 10 family members to watch my son play golf at Pebble Beach. And I made it out there, but I spent the first 2 days in a hospital with a severe infection that necessitated a test that found my ovarian cancer. And that is the only way, if I hadn't gotten that infection, that I would have gotten a stage 2 diagnosis. Still, it has a high rate of recurrence, and that is why I advocate, and I advocate for the people who are not able to, either because they're sick or they're not here. So nationally, I work with the Ovarian Cancer Research Alliance. Actually, hundreds of women, men, caregivers, family members work with them, and I'm an advocate leader, so we lobby Senate and Congressman representatives, and we also, I'm a survivors teaching students presenter, which means I will talk to university professors and their classes and healthcare students, doctors, nurses, healthcare practitioners. And so we spread the word, and I appreciate this proclamation because just tonight you shared some information that undoubtedly, whether you want to hear it or not, is going to affect somebody in this room, and you will remember what you said, just those statistics. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the awareness and recognition of it.
Well, again, as with Hope Villages, thank you to your foundation and to the many volunteers that are involved in bringing awareness to this important issue and the work you do.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Let's give the foundation a round of applause. This time, we'll move to item 4.3 on the agenda. I'd like to call forward a young man who's grew up in Clearwater, is going on to do great things for us over particularly at USF, and been a great leader over at the University of South Florida in many ways. And he's also served on the St. Petersburg Clearwater International. I did tell the airport director it should be the Clearwater St. Petersburg International Airport, not the other way around. But he's been on the noise abatement task force over there. So I'd like to invite Sean Schrader to come up tonight and just give us a report.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I'm Sean Schrader. I've been very fortunate to call Clearwater home over the last 23 years, all my life, and thanks to your support, have been really lucky to get engaged in a number of ways in our community. And thanks to your appointment over the last 4 years, have been able to represent the city of Clearwater at large on the St. Petersburg Clearwater International Airport Noise Abatement Task Force. I don't think I can say that 3 times fast. It's quite a mouthful. But I wanted to do 2 things tonight. One, just to kind of give you a brief overview of the work happening with the task force at the airport, and also thank you very much for the opportunity to serve. So many years ago, the Pinellas County Commission was kind of tired, I think, of receiving and fielding a lot of complaints coming in from residents who were in the direct flight path of different aircraft coming and going to the airport. So in partnership with the airport, they formed the task force. And essentially the task force brings together all of the municipalities that are within the direct flight path of aircraft that are coming and going at the airport to advise about different compliance activities within their quiet window and within their takeoff and landing procedures, as well as discuss the different complaints they receive, and then try and talk about ways to really understand how to mitigate those challenges. So the airport has in place a voluntary quiet window that goes from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. Now, I know everybody has different sleep schedules and different people are doing different things, but it's widely assumed by the airport and the community that most people probably don't want a helicopter or an airplane flying over your home at that time of the night. And so usually this is something that can be abided by. However, when you think about the different stakeholders at the airport, it's not always possible. They have several different, major players. On the commercial side of it, you've got Allegiant Airlines, which does a ton of flights in and out of this airport to different cities around the country. You also have Sun Country. They're not as big, but they are kind of pronounced. On the private side, you have a lot of different things going on. You have flight training for soon-to-be pilots. You have business jets for private use. You also have medical transport for those you need to get to another part of the country. And you also just have recreational use. And then for your external partners, you have the Coast Guard, and then you have the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. And so if you are a recreational pilot, I think you can plan out when your schedule is and when you want to fly your plane. But if you're Allegiant Airlines and you've got a weather delay that's happened in another part of the country, or you've had a medical incident take place on board the flight, that flight that maybe was supposed to get into our airport at 10:40 at night now has been delayed an hour and then comes in that quiet window. The same can be said if you're the Coast Guard. If there is a boat that's capsized out in the Gulf of Mexico, that's not scheduled, right? That can happen at any time. Or if you're the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, if they're looking to help deputies on the ground, to assist in apprehending a criminal, none of that kind of stuff is scheduled. And so I am happy to report, though, with the last meeting that convened this summer of the task force, there is a 95% compliance rate with all of the activity that happens with different folks following these procedures, which I think is a great number. I mean, given the fact of how busy this community is, the number of activities that are going on, that I think shows the commitment by the different partners to do what they can to navigate that balance of having, a busy community, an accessible community, but also one that is respectful of different residents. And I will say too, not everybody, I think, can always be happy with the aircraft activity. If you are directly over a flight path, there's reason to be concerned. You can submit complaints online. The airport website, I'd encourage you to look at it if you haven't already, has a great database. You can see live flights in real time, scheduled flights, submit complaints, and all of the work I've done with the airport really shows how much the director, the entire staff, is very committed to making sure residents feel heard. And again, it's that delicate balance. I mean, living in a busy community, we hear fire trucks, we hear ambulances, and we hear airplanes. I think that comes with the territory. But I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to serve. It's really been exciting. I know 4 years ago when I was appointed, there were different concerns because I'd never been a pilot, but I kind of got the interest from my grandfather and my dad, who were pilots in the past and interested in being pilots. That and Microsoft Flight Simulator, enough of that on the Xbox over the years. But because of an exciting opportunity to travel to Japan this fall to teach English, unfortunately, I will be resigning my position on the task force. But again, just want to thank you very much for the opportunity to serve. It's been really exciting. And I know as the airport continues to grow, the work that you all do to support external partners like Visit St. Pete Clearwater and others, I think they're at delicate balance, and the opportunity to manage incoming flights and help tourists get to our community and also make sure our residents are heard is going to continue. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but again, just want to thank you. It's been a great honor to serve.
I want to thank you for your service too. I mean, a lot of people don't think about it, but that flight path for that airport goes right over Delaware Estates, and so it's probably the neighborhood I hear the most interest in, the flight patterns and the noise abatement from. There are others it impacts too, but just was that your experience? Was there certain neighborhoods or parts of Clearwater that have more concerns than others?
For the most part, Del Oro Groves, that's definitely the highest. I think, again, because of my understanding, that's where Allegiant Airlines has, their scheduled departure and arrival kind of runway. And so you do hear other places, though, if the Coast Guard is flying over someone's home, maybe lower than their normal, flight level, or a lot of it is with the Sheriff's Office. Of course, sometimes they find someone in 5 or 10 minutes, but other times, they can go on for an hour, hour and a half. And I think, depending on who the pilot is, they kind of vary on what their flight level might be.
Well, congratulations on Councilman.
I was going to say thank you too very much, Sean, for your commitment to this, and good luck on your next endeavor in Japan. That sounds exciting as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll be back, though.
Certainly we want Clearwater to be an international city, so you going forth into Japan in a way, do some mission work there. To teach in a foreign country is inspiring to hopefully many other young people here in Clearwater who see Clearwater as part of the international community in the world. So thank you for setting an example. And just, all of us see your activities on social media at University of South Florida over the past number of years, and just impressive how you've been a prominent leader over there with the student body at USF, and you made us all proud here in Clearwater with your involvement at USF, so thank you for that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm fortunate to have a Clearwater lapel pin, so I'll wear it in Japan for more than a year. You all are great role models. Thank you for everything you do for our city. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you here tonight.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, with that, we'll move to item 4.4 on the agenda. This time I'll call forward Scott Burnham from NewGen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Scott Burnham. I'm a partner with NewGen Strategies and Solutions. And today we are going to be talking a little bit about the feasibility study. Yeah, okay. You guys can see that? Oh, there we go. All right. There you go. Put together a little agenda here. I want to talk a little bit about the project team. I've got some gentlemen up here. I'll introduce them as well. Talk a little bit about the project structure, and really get into the project plan and what we're doing from a technical feasibility, financial, legal analysis, looking a little bit at the project schedule. We've got some reference projects, some experience we've had in the past looking at feasibility studies, and then really open up to some questions. But I do want to applaud you guys for the effort that you put together. I did watch the deliberations earlier in August, recognizing you guys have a series of challenges, and I think the decision you made is a wise one. I think looking at alternatives for your energy supplier is a good thing to do. And with this study, we aim to inform you and give you some information to help you make further decisions down the road. With that, as mentioned, I am the project manager for this project. I have about approximately 25 years experience working in the electric utility industry, primarily working with municipal utilities and doing feasibility studies, looking at rates, development of cost of service, and the like. I've got Tom Gadosi, who's with Bar Engineering, and John Coyle with Duncan and Allen. They're going to have some slides up here so they can kind of introduce themselves when they get up here as well. This is how we're looking at structuring this project. As mentioned, I'll be the project manager. We've got the three organizations underneath us. We have a wealth of experience in this area and looking at feasibility analyses and looking at the economics around electric utility operations, as well as on the legal side with Duncan and Allen, and looking at the engineering side and operations side from Bar, and then of course with NewGen. These are the folks that will primarily be involved in this project. Again, reporting up to you guys as the project client. So I mentioned I want to talk a little bit about the process and what we're going to go through. So we define this into really kind of three easy tasks. We're going to have a kickoff meeting. We're going to develop what we're calling a strategic assessment, getting understanding of the objectives, the rationale, and sort of what we're hoping to come out of this project. Then we're going to jump into the technical side. We're going to have some boots on the ground. That's Tom and his folks, and then looking at some of the legal aspects. Of course, there's a lot of moving parts in any kind of feasibility analysis, as you can well imagine. Our intent is to synthesize this information, put this together, get together a report, and develop some recommendations, and finally a presentation back to you again to give you that information to allow you to make decisions about how you want to move forward and what's best for the city of Clearwater. We're going to have a kickoff meeting tomorrow with David and his staff as well. Talk about schedule, talk about, again, the strategic assessment, really defining how we're going to define the project success. We want to make sure that what we're delivering is what you guys need. Like I said, we've done this before, but every situation is unique. And every community is unique. They have unique community needs, unique situations relative to their electric service providers, different states, different jurisdictions. We'll start by reviewing a fair amount of the data. We have a copy of the franchise agreements that you have with Duke, Florida now. Understanding some of the requirements of that franchise agreement and in terms of the reporting requirements from Duke, looking at some of that information. Looking at available data, we're going to have a mix of publicly available data as well as some information specifically for Duke. We're going to send them a data request asking for information to help us fulfill the requirements of this study. Obviously, you have the gas utility operations now. We're going to be looking at some of your maps, some of your GIS database, which will help us in our process of understanding the electric system. Again, we will have boots on the ground, as Tom will talk about, to get a better understanding of those assets we're looking at. Understanding the utility data, understanding the customer mix, the mix between residential, commercial, industrial, all those customer classes use electricity slightly differently, and they have different wants and different needs relative to what they would need from their electric service provider. And so understanding that is an important element of the study. Understanding, again, their total load, how they're using electricity, and what times and at what levels is an important component. So we're going to put this together. Again, we're going to reach out to Duke, Florida, and put together a data request for them to help inform some of the information that we're going to get for this study. Ultimately, when we talk about a financial feasibility plan, what we're talking about is looking at the economics of, does it make sense for a city of Clearwater to form what we call a municipal electric utility versus compared to the status quo of going with Duke, Florida. So really what we're talking about is developing a financial model. We develop financial models for all sorts of types and reasons, but this one's going to be focusing on a comparison between essentially an all-in electric rate. And that comparison between the two rates, between the MEU going forward or the Duke, Florida going forward, is really what defines the feasibility. The critical elements within that model include what you would have to pay for the delivery assets that you would acquire from Duke. And so that's, again, predicated on Tom's analysis. He's going to understand, he's going to tell us what's out there. We're going to put a value to that. We're going to put that into our model. There are key elements around severance and reintegration relative to making sure that if an MEU is formed, that those customers that are served by Duke outside the city limits can continue to be served by Duke outside the city limits. And that's an important element, and that's a cost element that's included in our study. There's potential for stranded costs, and John's going to talk a little bit about that, relative to what that means from a legal perspective. But understanding that the intent is that the municipal electric utility is going to serve the electric load within the city boundaries. And so that electric utility is going to have that responsibility for serving that electric load. They're going to, or the municipal utility would acquire the distribution and delivery assets to serve that load. That does not mean that you'll have to build a power plant. Because of the way the power systems work across the country now, and because of deregulation that happened 25, 30 years ago, there's a wholesale power market, and there's open access requirements. And so therefore, the city can become a municipal purchaser of wholesale power. So you do not have to build power plants to become a municipal utility. Other elements within the model include startup costs, ongoing operations maintenance. As you know from operating your gas utility, that's not cheap. It requires investment. It requires continual monitoring. It requires a strong investment and a strong leadership to make sure that you're meeting the electric needs on an ongoing basis. That includes long-range capital planning. Those are future investments to make sure you're meeting the load, as well as replacing assets as they age out. Other elements around a municipal utility obviously are around financing costs and the way a municipal utility finances itself, issues debt, and then pays that debt over time. So these are elements that are within our model. As well as we recognize that right now you're getting a franchise fee payment from Duke. Those are municipal revenues that are going to be critical to maintaining as you go forward. We're not saying that, that suddenly you're going to be out of those revenues. That would be included as part of our modeling effort as well. I'm going to let Tom come up and talk a little bit about the field investigations for bar engineering and kind of the process that you go through there.
Scott. Mayor, Council, thank you for having us here. I'm Tom Gadosi. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Florida. I work for a bar engineering company. I've been doing engineering for utility systems for about 45 years. The primary work that we'll perform would be to assess what's here in the existing distribution system, to get a feel for how many poles there are, what kind of wire, what kind of underground system, and come up with a model of that system that shows this is what the municipal entity would have to acquire to be able to serve customers. And then we also will be on the ground and doing kind of a assessment of the condition, because a lot of the valuation has to do with is the facility 30 years old or is it 10 years old? What kind of value is inherent to that? What kind of things would need to be replaced or worked on or part of a long-range capital plan because those assets have aged in place? Obviously, the incumbent utility does that same process. So what we're looking at is an engineering model of the business that says this is what would have to be accomplished as a municipal electric utility. So we don't go in and say, well, you acquired it, good luck. It's, no, what do you have to do over the next 10 to 20 years to maintain it and to upgrade it and do those kind of things. And one of the things that we have a lot of experience in is the rapid load growth across the country. All productivity increases come from electricity. I take great pride in that. But that's an important piece of it because you will see that with electric vehicles and then with solar and with battery storage and a lot of different things going on. So we want to take those pieces into account in looking at the picture of what the municipal utility would look like. That's pretty much covers, you know, the general picture of what we're going to do. We will be not looking at the entire system because that wouldn't be cost effective, but we've done this over the last 12, 15 years. We take a representative sample. It's a pretty good size sample. I think we're looking at 20% of the system and creating maps, correlating with the GIS maps that you have of your existing facilities, whether it's water, wastewater, or gas, and being able to look at those and say, okay, what does this really look like? How would these customers be served? How would we separate the system to be able to have the municipal utility serve municipal customers and the incumbent utility serve the existing customers? And it's very important to maintain the level of service to the best of the ability for those existing customers that are, you know, not going to be part of the municipal utility. And that can be a significant cost because electric system is not built around boundaries. It's built to serve wherever the houses are built, whatever's going on. So that'll be one of the challenges that we'll address and provide you with information on how that might be accomplished. And so we've just illustrated here real quickly kind of the area. We do have some additional information we've been gathering from your GIS system already. We're integrating that. This indicates the locations of some major substations in the area. Typically, when we're looking at the municipal utility, the service point of interconnection between the municipal utility and the transmission provider will be at substations. So you can think about transmission comes into the substation. From there on, it's distributed at lower voltage to all the customers to be able to serve the customers. So that's typically a very reasonable and clear dividing point between the two. So it also provides a way to stay at a certain level of expertise as far as the municipal utility, not get into, say, the transmission system and additional federal regulatory requirements and things. So it makes it much like municipal utilities across the country, and that's the model we want to try and put together to make it as straightforward as possible. Not reinvent the wheel, but do something that we've seen is applicable across the country. I'll turn it over to John Coyle.
Finance, wires, and now law.
Save the best for last.
I don't know about that. Introduce myself briefly. I'm John Coyle. I'm the managing partner at Duncan & Allen in Washington, D.C. It has been my privilege to practice in front of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission now for the last 37 years. So I don't have more gray hair than Tom. About the same amount of top hair as David. Anyway, there we go. My role in all this is to assist in an understanding of the federal requirements that may be associated with the formation and operation of a municipal electric utility. We highlighted a few of those up here. One of the big obstacles that your incumbent utility will typically try to impose to formation of a municipal electric utility is a claim for stranded costs. What that refers to is back in 1996, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission directed all investor-owned utility transmission owners to provide open access to their transmission system. This was in response to years and years of antitrust litigation about investor-owned utilities foreclosing competition. So FERC said, oh, nope, you must offer service to all comers. But there was a catch. And the catch is what FERC at the time referred to as a transitional issue of stranded costs. If you use the incumbent's transmission system to access a new power supplier, well, then you're on the hook for commitments to generating resources that will purchase power and physical plant that the investor-owned utility had committed to in anticipation of your being there to pay for all this stuff. I say it was transitional. We've been in transition now for 28 years, and there's no sign of the transition ending. So, there are, however, a number of mitigation strategies in the rule that we will evaluate and make recommendations concerning. One, and the simplest one really, is to keep your power supply with the incumbent utility. So you would, for example, acquire the distribution plant within the city of Clearwater and still purchase your power now at wholesale from Duke Energy, Florida. Another mitigation strategy is behind the meter wholesale generation. I couldn't help but notice how much unoccupied land you have here. Not. So probably will not be building any solar fields anytime soon in the city of Clearwater, but we got to put it up there. Another sort of intriguing possibility is obtaining transmission service from a utility other than the consultant, than the incumbent. And this was something that had occurred to me, that there are two substantial transmission owning utilities kind of in the neighborhood. There's Tampa Electric across the bay, and there's Florida Power and Light, which actually has one of the most successful marketing affiliates next year in the country. And so there is, some theoretical possibility at least of you building out, or anyway, these are all things that need to be evaluated in connection with dealing with that stranded cost issue. There's a host of other regulatory stuff that may be involved, and time does not permit me to discuss it at the moment, but it'll be in the report. And I think this is my cue to turn the deck back over to Scott. There you go.
All right, so the last task in this study is to develop a draft report and final reports, working again with David and his staff and getting the analysis and together and the recommendations, including some process roadmaps about how to move forward with this, if indeed you do choose to do so. That we're going to include obviously the financial analysis, the fine work from Tom and John as well, into those recommendations. In terms of project schedule, we estimate about a 9-month process. We're having the kickoff meeting, as I mentioned, tomorrow. We're going to get Tom and his folks scheduled to come out, be on the ground and running around and looking at the wires and the poles and all the different pieces of equipment to put together, as we are in our offices furiously working on the financial models, and John's burning the midnight oil on the legal assessments as well. We'll get all that together again, put that into phase 3, get our reports to you, and again come down, present that, and allow you guys to make that decision on how you want to move forward with your electric service provider. That is the process that we had for you. I wanted to walk through a few different experiences we've had with other entities and looking at this exact same question. Again, as I mentioned, every municipality is different and every jurisdiction is different. We worked with the city of Chicago, for example, did a preliminary investigation for them. We did the financial modeling, and it actually turned out that it was not financially feasible. There of course, city of Chicago is so huge, and there's just so much investment, and we were talking in the billions and billions of dollars for the severance and reintegration issue that I mentioned before. That really came down, and the rates were low enough in Chicago that it did not make financial sense. And so our recommendation was to not move forward in that situation. We've been working, as I mentioned, with municipal entities across the country. In Kentucky, we formed the Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency. That was a group of 9 or 10 smaller municipalities that wanted to form and basically break away from a wholesale power contract and form their own entity. We got that up and running in 2019, and I know we did a fair amount of FERC work with that as well at the federal level relative to them becoming a wholesale purchaser of power. We are currently involved with the city of San Diego, California, in a rather large and lengthy study there. We did issue a phase 1 report in July of last year, and looking at the feasibility again at them acquiring the municipal distribution and delivery systems within that city. It was some preliminary financial feasibility that was suggested out of that report. We are now in phase 2 with those guys and working on that. We anticipate a report in July of next year. City of Ann Arbor has been looking at municipalizing as well. They were looking at developing primarily for environmental reasons. They wanted to go with carbon-free resources. We did work with another entity and issued a phase 1 report in February of this year, and they have actually just recently issued an RFP, a request for proposal, in August of this year, and we're looking at going forward with that analysis. I'm going to let Tom talk about the Core Electric Cooperative project here.
So this was a small municipality in Colorado, and they approached an electric cooperative about acquiring the system from the incumbent investor-owned utility. And so there was no map of what was there. We went out in the field, mapped the system. It wasn't nearly the size of Clearwater, of course, but went through, looked at the age of facilities, looked at what kind of costs there'd be, and as it turned out, the electric cooperative looked at that and said, you know, that it just doesn't make sense for our members and for our territory. So the end conclusion was that it wasn't something that they wanted to move forward with. And so one of the things I feel is real important for to bring up to everyone is that we don't have a dog in the hunt as to whether you do this or not. Our purpose is to make sure you have the best information to make a good decision. And so we will give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and support whatever it is that you're looking for to make sure you've got the information. But there's no bias toward doing it one way or doing it another way. This is what it would take to accomplish it, and are you comfortable with that, and is it within the parameters that you'd like to see? So kind of an example of how we work that together.
It's all right. It's all right. So I think I wanted to say geography is destiny to some extent in this setting. And I'm anticipating the next slide, really, because one of the things that you'll hear as you go forward with your exploration of alternatives is it'll never work. You can't do it. Government enterprise doesn't do anything. You actually have a very proud tradition of municipal electric utilities in this state. Jacksonville, Orlando, Gainesville, Tallahassee, I think, some of the big, and of course, the Florida Municipal Power Agency and the Keys, and largely because you were electrically isolated at one time, and it was citizen enterprise that made it happen. We hold the record at Duncan and Allen, I think, for the most successful municipalizations that actually resulted in formation of a utility. We have 4. The most recent one was Electrical District Number 3 in Pinal County, Arizona, which the Arizona Corporation Commission Chair kindly referred to as an irrigation ditch company when I came in to get her approval to transfer 4,400 customers to Electrical District Number 3 from Arizona Public Service. That was a 35 megawatt, primarily rural utility in 2001 when we started. Today it's a 270 megawatt suburb for exurb of Phoenix, I guess. The city of Clyde, Ohio was a trailblazer back in the early 1990s when the cost of nuclear power from Toledo Edison drove their rates through the roof. The rate differential from building an 8-mile, 69 kV transmission line to Ohio Power was sufficient, to about 35% lower rates as a result of wholesale, that Clyde was actually able to finance the construction of its own distribution system and bypass the issue of eminent domain completely. And then 2 of the older ones, Kanab, Utah, and the village of Elbow Lake, Minnesota, excuse me, was the municipalization that gave rise to the Supreme Court case in Otter Tail Power versus United States, which held that the Sherman Act indeed applies to investor-owned utilities with franchise service territory. So I guess in some respects I have myself to blame, or at least my former partners, my retired partners to blame for that nasty stranded cost transition provision in the open access rule. We've also done a number of feasibility studies which recommended, either recommended against or recommended pursuing alternative strategies to realization of municipal objectives, or, sometimes the city of Boulder being one where, although we were not successful in actually forming a municipal utility, the city was able to obtain substantial concessions from Public Service Company of Colorado in terms of their environmental performance. Trying to think. I think what I'll do is stop there. But those last 4 are illustrations of where, okay, there wasn't a municipal utility formed, but there was value added from the exercise. And I think that's something that this body will consider as you go forward. Your franchise is coming to an end with Duke Energy Florida. What do you want? What kind of leverage do you hold in the negotiation for a new franchise is a very important consideration as you go forward in that negotiation. And better informed in negotiations is a critical piece of success. And with that, I'll step aside and turn the mic back over to Scott. Thank you.
All right, this last slide here, just we wanted to put this in here because public power is not new, right? Public power has been around for as long as there's been power entities. Certainly here in Florida, the Florida Municipal Power Agency, we've worked with a handful of the entities that form FUMPA, Jacksonville, Key West, Reedy Creek, Energy Services. Tom has done 35 years of work with those guys, and the city of Tallahassee. So this model, this public power model exists. It's vibrant. We all know Winter Park formed their entity about a number of years ago. It can happen. It is a viable going forward and an operational element that powers 10% of Floridians' power right now is provided by public power. So with that, certainly be happy. Any questions? If you have questions about our study, any one of us up here, be happy to entertain that now.
Council members?
You already answered my question. When we first brought this up about even pursuing you all conducting this study. After that approval, majority of people are, where are we going to build a power plant in Clearwater? So, you know, you already answered that within your presentation, and I assume multiple other questions that probably a few of us had. So thank you very much for that, and all of you and your expertise coming down here. I look forward to 9 months from now what information we have and where we can go from it. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
And to echo, I think, you know, what really kind of persuaded us to do this study was the amount of money that our citizens here in Clearwater pay annually. And by citizens, even our businesses, it's staggering. It's a staggering number, the amount of money they pay in electric use fees. That's a substantial number that I don't think a lot of our citizens understand. The second thing that I think struck some of us, and I just saw an article in Florida Trend Magazine here in the last 2 months where there are 4 investor-owned public electric utilities in Florida. All of them have higher rates than any of the municipally owned electric utilities in the state of Florida. And Duke, our provider, is the highest of all the electric providers in the state of Florida. So we're curious, you know, what the advantages would be to our citizens. And one would be if all these other municipally owned electric utilities in the state of Florida are able to charge lower rates than all of the investor-owned utilities, then that's a benefit that the feedback, at least I've gotten, I don't know about the other council members, but they'd at least like to take a look at. And at the very worst, have a conversation with Duke about, you know, why this is and why they're not able to provide similar services at lower rates like the municipally owned electric utilities are. So certainly that interested us in having you all do this study. I think they were giving me a hard time last time because I used the quote, "Information is power," with no pun intended. But it is. It's really arming, really, and we are doing this for our citizens. Our citizens pay a lot in electric utility bills, and they have all kinds of pressures, property insurance. Some of you aren't from here, but you probably heard about in Florida that are really tough on them. So anything we can do to analyze those rates they're paying and do something we can to get those rates down is important. And this study, I think, will take us a long way, and I think we're all interested in your results. And maybe it doesn't work out, but you've shared tonight that you'll be honest with us about, you know, where you see it heading for us and whether it's worth our moving forward or not. So thank you for your report, and no other questions, then we look forward to working with you.
No, I just appreciate you coming down, taking your time to explain to us and our residents the process and how it unfolds. And it seems like you've been doing it plenty long enough to know what holes could be poked in and what questions to be asked. So to stump this group is pretty impressive. But thank you for the time you're going to put going forward and the due diligence in getting us educated and finding an answer to hopefully a solution at the end of the day. It saves our citizens money. And
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. Appreciate your time this evening.
Here with that, we'll move to item 5.1 on the agenda.
Approve the minutes of the August 15, 2024 City Council meeting as submitted in written summation by the city clerk.
Okay, are there any corrections to the minutes?
Make a motion to approve item 5.1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This time we'll move to item 6 on the agenda, the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the agenda? Have we got any requests to remove an item from the
No, sir.
agenda? No,
Oh, no? Okay.
okay.
Wasn't the appointed, there wasn't an item that was removed?
It's not on
It
consent.
wasn't put on the consent
Okay,
agenda.
all right. So move to approve agenda items 6.1 through 6.25.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, with that,
Oh,
we'll move to item 7.1 on the agenda.
Set final millage rate of 5.8850 mils for fiscal year 2024-25 against non-exempt real and personal property within the city of Clearwater and pass ordinance 9792 on first reading.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kayleen Castle, Budget Director. This is the first of two public hearings required by Florida statute to finalize the fiscal year 24-25 operating and capital improvement budget. For the benefit of residents present or watching, I have a presentation which gives an overview of the budget you are approving. The fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget for all city funds is $753,521,697. Our operating funds and special revenue funds total $600,682,997, and capital improvement funds are budgeted at $152,838,700. In total, this is an increase of less than 1% or right around 1% from the 23-24 amended budget. This slide further breaks down the operating portion of the last slide, showing totals by fund type. The general fund budget for fiscal year 25 reflects a 12% increase from the current year's amended budget, and a few slides that will detail the general fund budget later in this presentation. The utility funds total, which includes the budget for our water and sewer, stormwater, gas, and solid waste and recycling operations, reflects a 4% decrease from the fiscal year 24 amended budget. Across these departments, this includes funding for 476.8 FTEs, all operating expenses for these departments, and transfers of $56.3 million to fund capital maintenance projects. The enterprise fund total includes the budget for operations of the beach marina, air park, Clearwater Harbor Marina, and parking operations is budgeted at a 57% increase over the current year. For these departments, this includes funding of 75.1 FTEs, the budget for all operating expenses, transfers of $1.7 million for ongoing capital maintenance, and the reason for this increase is transfers of $32 million for one-time capital projects budgeted next year. The internal service funds include the budget for information technology, utility customer service, building and maintenance, fleet and radio communications, and the central insurance fund. Internal service funds reflect a 5% increase from prior year. Across these departments, this includes budgeting for 162.3 FTEs, transfers of $2.5 million for capital maintenance projects. A total of $37 million is budgeted for insurance costs and claims, and $6 million is budgeted for short-term debt from vehicle purchases and replacements. These budgets also include all operating costs, which include citywide expenses for fuel, technology software agreements, and building maintenance contracts. Special revenue funds reflect a 45% decrease from prior year, and this is due to a decrease in planned penny funding for next year in comparison to the current year. These funds include the Special Development Fund, which accounts for restricted revenue sources that are allocated to capital projects such as Penny for Pinellas, the road millage, and fuel tax. This total is $20.3 million of that total. The Special Program Fund is budgeted, accounts for both revenues and expenditures related to grants or any kind of special activities. That is a $1.8 million of that total. And our other housing assistance funds are budgeted at $1.3 million. And again, capital improvement funds reflect a 5% decrease from the current year, and I have other slides that detail capital funding later in this presentation. This chart represents the change in taxable property values over the last 11 years. Our 2024 preliminary values received from the Pinellas County Property Appraiser reflect an increase of taxable property values of approximately 9.6% from $16.9 billion in 2023 to $18.5 billion. The proposed millage rate of 5.8850 mils is recommended for the fiscal year 24-25 budget. This is the same rate as was levied in the current year. Due to value growth, this proposed rate is 6.81% greater than the rolled back rate. The rolled back rate is the millage rate that would provide the city with the same property tax revenue as was received in the prior year. Using the proposed millage rate, property tax revenues are projected to be $104.3 million in fiscal year 25. This represents an increase of approximately $9.1 million or 10% over the fiscal year 24 budget. Of that $104.3 million projected, approximately $99.3 million will support general fund operations, and $5 million represents the road millage used for maintenance of city streets. Revenues that support general fund operations reflect a net increase of 12% in comparison to fiscal year '24 revenues. As discussed on the previous slide, ad valorem tax revenues are budgeted at approximately $99.3 million. This is a 10% increase over the current year, and this is our largest source of revenue in the general fund at 44% of total. We're budgeting an increase of 11% in utility tax and 12% in franchise fees this year, and this is based on the trend of receipts over the last few years. Transfer in revenues include the payment in lieu of taxes from the gas fund or from our proprietary funds, the gas dividend, and the transfers for staff and admin costs for the CRA. These revenues are budgeted at a 12% increase in comparison to the current fiscal year. The other revenue category includes building permit fees, fines, interest earnings, and smaller miscellaneous revenues, which also includes the ticket rebate and naming rights for the sound. This category is anticipated to increase by 14% next year. And $8.3 million of general fund reserves are budgeted to fund one-time capital projects for the Long Center and the Edgewater Drive Park Improvements project. General fund expenditures in total reflect a 12% increase across all operations in comparison to the current year. The increase fiscal year '25 budget includes new FTEs that are proposed, annual wage adjustments, costs associated with insurance increases, debt service costs for Imagine bonds, and increased capital funding for road maintenance and city facility improvement projects. The budget for Parks and Recreation is increased by 25% for next year. The majority of this increase is funding of $8.6 million transferred for one-time capital projects for major facility renovations. Similarly, the Public Works Department reflects a 19% increase, also due to transfers of $3.7 million for one-time infrastructure projects. The budget for non-departmental includes the cost for minor general expenses, property and liability insurance, the transfer to the CRA for the city's share of TIF, and also transfers to the capital fund for ongoing maintenance projects at general government facilities. This is budgeted at a 38% increase next year, and this is due to including a contingency fund to account for costs associated with public safety union contracts that are currently in negotiations. This chart represents that total general fund budget by category. Personnel costs continue to be our largest expense at just under 59% of total. This represents funding for 1,174.1 full-time equivalent positions that support all of our general fund departments. Operating expenditures represent the next largest category at 15% of total. Internal service charges are for the costs associated with information technology, building and maintenance, fleet, risk management, and employee benefits. This is 11% of the total budget. Interfund transfers is 14% of total. And for next year, this represents $14.4 million transferred to fund capital repair and replacement projects, $12.7 million for one-time major facility renovations and road construction projects, and $3.9 million of that total is transferred to the CRA, representing the city's TIF contribution. And debt and capital expenditures combined represent approximately 1.5% of the total general fund budget. A total of 1,904.3 full-time equivalent positions are proposed across all funds for fiscal year '25. This is an increase of 17.6 from the current fiscal year '24 amended budget. In this graph, the sand-colored portion represents general fund FTEs, which are budgeted at 1,174.1 positions for next year, and that is an increase of 6.3 positions. The police department budget includes 1.8 FTEs, new FTEs for the police aid program, and additional part-time hours are added to support the red light camera program. This totals 2 FTEs added to the police department. In Public Works, we're including 2 engineers to support our project workload and 1 business system analyst to support the new asset management software implementation. In Human Resources, an additional Human Resources analyst is added to support the increased volume of employee interactions, and also hours are added to convert a part-time position to a full-time Human Resources technician. This is a total increase of 1.3 FTEs in HR. The green portion of this graph represents all other funds, budgeted at 730.2 FTEs for next year, and that is an increase of 11.3 positions. In the Water and Sewer Fund, we are adding 2 business systems analysts to support the new asset management software and all other utility software. We're adding a warehouse supervisor to provide additional support for materials and inventory management, and a contracts and procurement specialist to support the utilities engineering team. In the stormwater fund, we're adding a construction inspector to enhance right-of-way and sediment control inspections. In the general services fund, 2 additional trades workers are added to support building and maintenance. In the garage fund, 2 additional fleet mechanics are added to support the solid waste mechanics team. In the administrative services fund, in information technology, we're adding a staff assistant necessary to provide administrative support to the department. And a network analyst 3 is also added to support identity management functions. In the special program fund, a part-time recreation leader is added to support youth and after-school programs at the North Greenwood Recreation Center, and this position is funded by revenues from the Juvenile Welfare Board. The total budget for capital improvement funds is $152.8 million for fiscal year '25. This slide represents a categorical breakdown of the capital improvement budget. Funding for our utility projects, which is planned capital maintenance for stormwater, water and sewer, gas, and solid waste and recycling. For fiscal year '25, this is budgeted at $56.3 million, which is approximately 37% of all capital funding. General government projects are budgeted at $48.2 million. This represents 32% of total capital funding. This includes all projects for police, fire, streets, sidewalks, parks and recreation facilities, libraries, and maintenance of city buildings and facilities that operate general government functions. Projects that support internal service operations are budgeted at $14.4 million, or 9% of total capital funding. These projects support fleet, radio communications, general services, information technology, and utility customer service. And the capital budget for smaller enterprise funds is proposed at $33.9 million for next year. And this provides for funding for capital repair and maintenance of the air park, both marinas, and parking facilities. Significant changes proposed to general government projects include a $3.2 million increase for a new total of $7.5 million of general fund revenues budgeted for the Long Center project. New general government projects budgeted for the first time in fiscal year '25 include $500,000 to fund the Public Works share of the asset management software implementation, $200,000 to establish the North Ward renovation project, $125,000 to establish the police range repair and replacement project, $150,000 to begin planning for a new countryside pickleball project, $540,000 to establish a sports lighting retrofit project, and $200,000 to fund a city shorelines project, all of these of which are funded with general fund revenues. For enterprise fund projects, significant changes include a new project funded with $22 million of parking revenues to fund the Gotham Development Agreement, and $3 million in parking revenues to begin funding the Beach Marina garage parking project. Circling back to property values and millage rates, I'm going to take a minute to talk about how this millage rate affects our residents in Clearwater with an example of city taxes on homesteaded property. As a reminder, taxable value is the value after all exemptions. With homestead exemption, the Save Our Homes cap limits the increase of assessed value to the lesser of CPI, or 3%. The Save Our Homes cap for this upcoming year is that max of 3%. With this cap, assessed values of homesteaded properties may see a 3% increase. On a 2023 taxable value of $100,000, assuming that 3% growth, the new taxable value this year would be $103,000. So in this example, or for every $100,000 of taxable value, city taxes would increase by $17.66. I've also listed an alternative property tax example over this slide, again on a homesteaded property. For a home with a taxable value of $250,000, total city taxes would be $1,471, which breaks down to about $4.03 a day. Trim notices were mailed to residents a few weeks ago. These notices show an estimate of total property taxes for the year for all agencies that are levied in Clearwater. This slide represents the breakdown of that total tax bill for Clearwater residents. Approximately 30% of the tax bill is for the Pinellas County School Board, 30% is in support of Pinellas County government operations, the city's portion is 31% of this total, and 9% of total is to support all other taxing agencies. The proposed budget was made available on the city's website on June 28th. This was presented to the public at the council meeting on July 15th, where you approved the tentative millage rate. A special work session was held on August 14th to further discuss the budget as presented tonight. Tonight is our first public hearing, and the second hearing to adopt the budget is planned as part of the council meeting on Tuesday, September 17th. That is also scheduled for 6 p.m. This budget will go into effect October 1st. So this specific agenda item is for the millage rate ordinance. This is to adopt a millage rate of 5.8850 mils to support the operating and capital improvement budgets for fiscal year 24-25. This rate is the same as levied in the current year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Need to read this first before I invite public comment? Or?
Yes, Mayor. This is ordinance number 9792-24, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, declaring the millage rate to be levied for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, for operating purposes, including the funding of pensions, debt service, and road maintenance, for capital improvement expenditures at 5.8850 mils, providing an effective date. The levy of 5.8850 mils constitutes a 6.81% increase from the rolled back rate of 5.5099 mils.
This time, is there anyone here from the public desiring to speak to agenda item 7.1? Okay. Seeing none, is there any council discussion? Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Appreciate your hard work on all this, too. I mean, I feel like, for the public, they haven't seen our work sessions, and I wouldn't say we beat it to death, but we've been into it a lot. We've asked a lot of questions leading up to tonight, but appreciate you keep coming back with often the same or similar presentation over and over again, and thank you for the detail and work you put into it.
Thank you.
Item 7.2.
Approve the City of Clearwater annual operating budget for the 2024-25 fiscal year and pass ordinance 9793-24 on first reading.
This is for the first reading of the ordinance to adopt the operating budget for fiscal year 24-25. As discussed at the work session yesterday and through this presentation, I just want to highlight in this item changes that have been made to the budget from the preliminary release. And the general fund miscellaneous and transfer in revenues are adjusted. It nets to zero. This accounts for revenues in the correct categories necessary to balance transfers. And expenditures are adjusted, also netting to zero, decreasing the city manager's office budget by $361,047 to transfer the neighborhoods division to public communications. In the water and sewer fund, expenditures are adjusted for a correction, increasing wastewater collection program by $7,811,880 to account for transfers to the capital improvement fund for the Fort Harrison improvements and public works complex projects. These were budgeted correctly in the capital program, just mistakenly left out of the transfers and the operating side. Due to that expenditure increase, revenues are adjusted to recognize the use of fund reserves of $3,053,470 necessary to balance the water and sewer fund budget. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you have.
Want to go ahead and read it?
Ordinance number 9793-24, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, adopting an operating budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, authorizing the city manager to issue such instructions that are necessary to achieve and accomplish the service program so authorized, authorizing the city manager to transfer monies and programs among the departments and activities within any fund as provided by Chapter 2 of the Clearwater Code of Ordinances, providing an effective date.
This time, is there anyone here from the public that desires to speak to agenda item 7.2? Hearing, seeing none, is there any council discussion? Is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 7.3.
Approve the fiscal year 2024-25 annual capital improvement budget, establish a 6-year plan for the capital improvement project program, and pass ordinance 9794-24 on first reading.
This is for the first reading of the ordinance to adopt the capital improvement fund budget for fiscal year 24-25. There have been no changes made to the capital budget from the preliminary release. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on the capital budget.
Reading.
Ordinance number 9794-24, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, adopting a capital improvement program budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, approving the 6-year capital improvement program, which shall be reevaluated at the beginning of each fiscal year, authorizing the city manager to issue such instructions that are necessary to achieve and accomplish the capital improvements so authorized, authorizing the city manager to transfer money between projects in the capital improvement program, appropriating available and anticipated resources for the projects identified, providing an effective date.
This time, is there anyone here from the public who desires to speak to agenda item 7.3? Hearing, seeing none, is there any council discussion? Hearing, seeing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve item 7.3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item 7.4.
Approve the recommended penny for Pinellas project list as revised for fiscal years 2024-25 through 2029-30.
Tonight is our annual public hearing to approve the Penny for Pinellas project list for fiscal year 24-25 through fiscal year 29-30. City ordinance requires us to hold a public hearing prior to the annual adoption of the capital improvement budget to discuss the use of Penny for Pinellas tax, and also at any time in which there is a proposed change to the Penny for Pinellas project funding of $500,000 or more. Attached to this agenda item is the project list. There are no changes proposed to that Penny for Pinellas project funding in the fiscal year 24-25 budget. I have that available if necessary. I can put on the elbow. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the penny list.
Does anyone here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 7.4? Hearing and seeing none, is there any council discussion? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 7.4.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 7.5.
Amend Appendix A, Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Schedule of Fees, Rates and Charges, Article 24, Public Works Fees, Rates and Charges, Section Paren 3, Paren C, Solid Waste Collection Rates, Section Paren 3, Paren D, Recycling Rates, and Section 5, Other Miscellaneous Charges, increase specific collection fees for solid waste and recycling annually by 3.75%, effective October 1, 2024, October 1, 2025, October 1, 2026, October 1, 2027, and October 1, 2028, and pass ordinance 9788-24 on first reading.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilmember Kirby St. Solid Waste. Councilmember, first reading for amendment to Appendix A, Clearwater Code of Ordinance, Schedule Fee, Rates, and Charges. Per the recommendation of Centex to perform the rate study on behalf of the city, Solid Waste is recommended the approval for annual increase of 3.75 effective October 1st, 2024 through October 1st, 2028 for rate increase. Any questions?
Before reading.
Ordinance number 9788-24, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, Schedule of Fees, Rates, and Charges, Article 24, Public Works, Fees, Rates, and Charges, Section 3C, Solid Waste Collection Rates, Section 3D, Recycling, Section 5, Other Miscellaneous Charges, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
This time, is there anyone here from the public desiring to speak to agenda item 7.5? Seeing and hearing none, is there any council discussion? Is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.5.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 7.6.
Amend the Clearwater Community Development Code, Section 3-1508, related to the regulation of noise, and pass ordinance 9790-24 on first reading.
Evening, Mayor, Council, Eric Gandy. So these are some amendments to our noise ordinance to make it a little bit more efficient, more enforceable, and to address some antiquated language. This will be the first reading tonight. Anyone have any questions regarding the ordinance?
Is there anyone here from the public desiring to speak to agenda item 7.6? Hearing and seeing none, is there any council discussion? Is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.6.
Second.
All those in favor?
There's an ordinance.
Oh, you need to read it?
I'm sorry.
So for ordinance number 9790-24,
That's right.
an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, relating to the regulation of noise, amending Community Development Code, Article 3, Development Standards, Division 15, Property Maintenance Standards, Section 3-1508, Noise, amending the definitions of noise and public nuisances, amending persons responsible, providing an effective date.
Now, is there any discussion? Is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.6.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item 7.7.
Approve the joint participation agreement G3137 between the City of Clearwater and the State of Florida Department of Transportation, construction of terminal and FBO building at the Clearwater Air Park. Authorize the appropriate officials to execute same and adopt resolution 24-12.
Good evening, Council. Mike McDonald, Marine and Aviation Director. This item is a request to approve a grant agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation for the construction of a new terminal building at the Clearwater Air Park in the amount of $3 million. On May 18th, 2023, Council approved a grant agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation for the design of the terminal building. As part of the public-private partnership between the City of Clearwater and Fly USA, in our agreement, we are seeking to redevelop the terminal building as well as other portions of the airport. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
This time, is there anyone here from the public to speak to agenda item 7.7? Hearing seeing none, is there any council discussion?
We have resolution number 24-12, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, authorizing the execution of a joint participation agreement between the City of Clearwater and the State of Florida Department of Transportation for a grant to construct a new terminal and FBO building at the Clearwater Air Park, providing an effective date.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve item 7.7.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Agenda item 7.8.
Appoint Diane Etchinelli to the Community Development Board to a term expiring February 29, 2028. Council members, Ms. Etchinelli was serving a partial term and completed that term in February of this year, and the item before you is to reappoint as in past practice.
This time, is there anyone here from the public desiring to speak to agenda item 7.8?
Good evening, council members and staff. Chris Michaelette, 855 Bayway Boulevard, Clearwater Beach. I wrote and asked Rosemary to move this from the consent agenda because the delegate that you're considering, Diane Ancinelli, works for a company that is currently on a contract on a project that is across from where I live, 850 Bayway Boulevard. I believe I asked Rosemary, and I don't know if this has been checked to date, but I believe that this contractor has a contract with the city, or because this person, Diane Ancinelli, is going to be on the CD, I think that could be a conflict. So I'm asking you to, number one, if you have not already checked to see if she is, that contract is with the city, because I think that would be a conflict, to postpone this item until next time so that we can investigate to see if she indeed would have a conflict of interest of serving on the CDB. As you know, the CDB makes all kinds of decisions about projects, development projects that are construction and that involve, our neighborhood. So that is what I'm asking for.
Is there anyone else here tonight that desires to speak to agenda item 7.8? Okay. Council discussion. Councilmember Tixer?
I actually read Ms. Mikulec's concern, and I, in our one-on-one meetings with the city attorney this week, I actually followed up on that. Is that okay if you would want to go over what your response was to me?
If I'm asked, I don't, unless I'm asked, I typically do not dispense legal advice
I think
in
you do a better
public,
job than I
But if I'm
would.
asked, I will.
Can
So.
you just go over the two reasons, the two points that you brought to my attention?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll just to make a kind of a general observation. Public integrity issues are something that are, I think, very important to everyone on the dais. Every person sitting up here takes those issues very seriously when it comes to the public trust, conflicts of interest, public ethics, et cetera. However, Florida law pretty much defines what a conflict of interest is. And in my experience, sometimes the public understanding of what gets perceived as a conflict of interest may not be how the legislature has defined a conflict of interest. So when it comes to these issues, there are legitimate issues that Ms. Accianelli, if she continues to serve, does have to be aware of. So it's not like I don't disagree with the legitimacy of the concern that has been raised, but the Florida legislature has provided the mechanism to deal with that. And the appropriate mechanisms are as follows. Number one, if any member of the CDB, or for that matter, any member of this council, has a financial stake in the outcome of what you're voting on, then you're required to recuse yourself. And that's true for Ms. Accianelli, just like it is for any member of the council and any other member of the CDB. So if, for example, a developer comes forward and they have a project with McKim & Creed as the engineer, then Ms. Accianelli will be required to recuse herself from that. That requirement to recuse herself from that item really has nothing to do with the city of Clearwater. The application may involve a private development on the beach that really doesn't involve us at all. But she will have to recuse herself from any item in which McKim & Creed is participating as an engineer of record or has some other financial stake in the project. So that's number one. I know that CDB's attorney, Jay Daigneault, is another board-certified expert in local government. I know that he is very familiar with those issues and certainly will advise Ms. Accianelli on that. The second point where I think Ms. Accianelli needs to be mindful, because the city does do business with McKim & Creed, is to ensure that she is not in any way participating in our procurements, in the selection process, et cetera. So for example, if she were to be pitching the city on her services on behalf of McKim & Creed, that would be improper and that would be an ethics violation. But since we all know, and since it's all being discussed publicly, and we all know that she's on the board, staff is aware of it, the council's aware of it, the public is aware of it, et cetera, I don't think any one of us would be caught off guard or surprised by that. That's just, it's not gonna happen. But if it did, it would be an ethics violation, and it's something that, yes, we do have to prevent. But I do not perceive either of those issues as her being ineligible to serve on the CDB. It simply will govern the way she conducts herself on the CDB. So yes, there are legitimate issues that she has to be aware of, but that does not disqualify her from serving on the CDB if that is the person that the council wishes to appoint.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's, I think, Vice Mayor, you served on the Community Development Board too, so you've had similar experience. That
I just want to say that there's been a lot of talk about the CDB and the qualifications and the people that should serve on it. I think one of the qualifications is somebody that understands construction as an engineer or contractor or attorney that understands that what the CDB talks about, land use and things. And she's definitely qualified because she is a consultant and she served on the board. So I think she just needs to be careful on any cases that come up, as our city attorney said, and recuse herself if her company is involved in that. But otherwise, I think she's a good pick for this board.
Yeah, I would just pepper in, having served on that board too, that it has its own attorney Jay Daniel, and he works regularly with board members to determine whether or not there's conflict and whether or not they can recuse themselves. There's really a duty to not recuse yourself under Florida law. So he helps board members navigate that on a case-by-case basis. And certainly, I think it's fair that you raise this issue so that certainly she's aware of it as she goes forward serving, that she needs to be attentive to her company's relationship with it. But I don't think for this council, it disqualifies her from our end, that it would just be an issue that would have to be addressed by the Community Development Board as she hears cases from time to time. That would be my take. Okay, any further discussion? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 7.8.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Agenda item 7.9.
Amend council rules and adopt resolution 24-15.
And this was on the evaluations.
Yes, so.
You just want to go ahead and read it?
Yes, Mayor. This is resolution number 24-15, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending council rules, providing an effective date. I know that we discussed it at the work session, but this is the update to evaluations council had requested. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 7.9?
Good evening, Mayor Rector, council members, Ms. Poirier, Mr. Margolis. With regards to the resolution before you, but specifically to the performance evaluation tools, I would say, number one, that I'm very positive. I think this is a very positive movement forward. The reason for that is that this now provides a standardized document that all the council members can use, that its specific items are listed in terms of what are points of determination, and there is a measurement scale that's been provided for the council members to rate the individuals. However, I would point out with the existing form that a great many of the questions or the items that are listed are really more subjective in nature as opposed to clearly measurable goals, and may in fact solicit opinions or feelings about the interactions between a council member and either of the two city individuals. And I would give as examples of that with regards to the document itself. For the city manager, for instance, under staffing, it simply says recruits and retains competent personnel for staff positions. But one of the big issues that's constantly been talked about and is also elicited within the budget is vacancies and how vacancies are handled. But that's not one of the measurement tools that are listed here. A second item that is also shown under the city manager talks about fiscal management. And one of the measures is prepares a balanced budget to provide services at a level directed by council. The city is mandated to have a balanced budget. So how could a budget as a measurement tool be advanced to the council that wasn't balanced to begin with? And then, since it goes on to say, at levels directed by the council, each council member may have a slightly different opinion in terms of, is that in fact meeting our belief, or my belief as a council member, that that's correct? The thing is, I think this can be massaged a little bit more in order to get at more measurable goals. We currently have certain documents that are put out by the city saying, here's how we are doing on these different things. And so I would suggest that some objective goals and measurements be brought from the strategic plan and made a part of this, maybe up to 3 goals, that the council can specifically measure and say, are these things being accomplished? Are they being accomplished timely under the timelines that we have established to get them completed? And so with that, that's my point. I think this is a great first step, and it's good that we're doing it, so it's really not, it's more than just the subjective way it used to be. And with that, I thank you very much.
Is anyone else here from the public desiring to speak to agenda item 7.9? Council discussion?
I think I'd like to touch on it only because I was probably the one on council that was a little pushy when we discussed this on really formalizing a structured approach regarding our performance evaluations that truly align with the city's strategic goals. And I went through, obviously, back sessions, videos of how councils navigated this discussion before, and we were obviously not this group, but in the past have been very divided on how this is handled. And I think with a deadline of October, I think this was a good first step for us to take and get some sort of formalized process in place that we all came to an agreement on. I do think we should keep an open mind that I believe that regarding performance evaluations, there probably is room for growth for us as a council to move and as a city and find ways to make it more measurable in a process that's fluid and flexible, but truly pays respect to a holistic approach that performance evaluations that the process does bring. So I'm happy that we made this decision. I'm happy we move and formalize this. I just hope we keep an open mind going forward as we turn the page for next year, that we might revisit this at some point and see if we can hone this in a little more.
Anybody else? Vice Mayor?
Okay, so I since I've been here the longest and has probably done more of these than anybody up here, I've always done a written evaluation because I've always felt that that's the best for public record, even though we're videotaped here and it goes on record that way. But I just wanted to make everybody aware that, each one of us separately has weekly meetings with both the city manager and the city attorney. And so throughout the year, we have weekly evaluations of things that we talk to them about. So this end of the year evaluation is just a kind of a summary for the public. It's not going to be anything new that is written down that all of a sudden the city manager goes, oh my gosh, I didn't know you knew. I mean, we talked several times a week on things. So just wanted to put that out to the public so they can understand this particular evaluation is a summary of what we've been doing all year. And to tell you the truth, we have individual meetings with the city manager and the city attorney, and each one of us here comes to them with a different view. And because you have elected us on our, what we say we want to accomplish. And so we're not all in lockstep up here at the end of the year. I think this council here, we're more than we've had in the past, but I think we do a pretty good job of getting things done and agreeing when we need to. So I just wanted to put that out there, Mayor.
Councilman Sheriff?
I agree with Councilman Albritton. In my mind, this evaluation process is for the citizens. It's a transparent, objective way to do a performance evaluation. Because like Councilmember Albritton said, and I have not been here as much as you have, but it's it's over 2 years. It's our conversations with both these professionals are quite intensive every week, whether it's an hour and a half, 2 hours. So the level of communication is not superficial. So there's no surprises in September, October. There's a continuous fluid conversation, a push and a pull, especially when there's a difference of opinions or there's difference of visions, or there's really deep conversations that go on, which includes the sharing of difference of opinion, so, and expectations and all that. So in my mind, this evaluation is for the general public. It's a transparent way to communicate their performance. But the level of communication that I've had with these two, I've never had in any other professional capacity. That kind of intense sharing of information and opinion. So there's no surprises, right? There's none. So this is for the citizens. It's a transparent way to communicate.
Well, I'll just weigh in a little bit. Yeah, I think Vice Mayor said it well, and both Councilmember Menino and Teixeira, that it's really, in the case of the city attorney and the city manager, you really have 5 different supervisors. And we all have our own experiences and backgrounds, and we have all managed and supervised employees in different situations where we have our own style of coaching and working with people we supervise. And so it makes it very hard for both the city attorney and the city manager to kind of gather the information the 5 of us give them separately in a way that helps them improve their performance, is what both of them want to do. They both want to be high-performing employees and city manager and city attorney. So it's difficult, not just for us to do that, to blend it when we can't meet and have a public discussion on it here. I've always, throughout private sector experience, you always praise employees in front of other employees, and you point out areas of opportunity for improvement in private. You don't do that publicly. And so I find it awkward, to be expected to have that kind of transparent evaluation of both the city attorney and city manager publicly, because if we were really transparent, fully transparent, it would make it hard for them to do their jobs going forward, doing that in a public way. So as council member said, we meet with each of them every week. We have candid conversations about things, not their performance in particular, but things that with the city that need to be improved, and they have direct access and control over the employees who can make those things happen and improve. So I like what we're doing here. I think it does give us a framework for each to lay in our own, and I like that. We are improving, I think, to get it a little bit more consistent. But I don't think it's good. I think that it's good that we each are able to bring our own perspective and weigh in our own way and use this template to say whatever we give the feedback we want to give publicly, because as I pointed out to both of them today in my meeting, it's very hard for them to navigate the 5 different sets of feedback they get from different, and we don't always, as the Vice Mayor pointed out, we don't always, generally we are on the same page on many issues, but there are preferences or things that we think are important that maybe the other 4 don't think are important. And that certainly comes through with the weekly meetings I have with each of them, that we do have difference of opinion and things that we would prefer them to be spending more time on than other things, and that makes it hard for them to navigate that. So to the extent we can only discuss things publicly, full transparency in most situations, that's good. In this situation, it makes it more difficult. And I do think the template is good, but I think the flexibility for us still to evaluate and give our evaluation in our own way is important. And I hope we continue at least that. City Manager?
Yeah, and I also wanted to point out, that it's still part of this process, unless changed by council, is the goal setting. And we were directed, and still have been directed, to provide SMART goals. And so that is a part of the process that's going to be discussed at the next meeting. So there's still that opportunity, should the council want that to make that be a part of the evaluation. Now, I understand the form doesn't necessarily address that, but it's going to be discussed and decided if those are the goals that we should be working on, and then you could make that work into the form, if that's the council's will.
And there's a difference between city goals and what the goals are for their performance in their respective positions, and I think that takes some sorting out. And really, a strategic planning discussion among the council at some point, if we can have that. We had a really good session one day. I think more of that would not only help us focus both the city attorney and the city manager on the goals for their position, but I think would help us get us more focused as a council too on what our joint vision is and collective vision, and certainly help the two of them perform in their roles as well. So hopefully we can work towards scheduling another session like that.
Oh, yeah, so the strategic planning session is part of, it's part of our budget process, and we start that in January. So those strategic planning sessions with council will begin as soon as we get this adopted, then we start working on next year. And so those meetings are absolutely forthcoming.
Good. Okay, anything further on this? So is there a motion?
I move to approve agenda item 7.9.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Now we'll move to item 8.1, North Beach update.
Hello, sir.
Evening, Mayor, council members, Marcus Williamson, Public Works Director. Wanted to start off with one of the good news stories out there. We had put the tidal valves out by the Carlisle Yacht Club, and what we did see during some of that heavy rain and tidal surge, we had actually seen overtopping of the seawall in the private sector area that flowed down, us being able to put the pump in there by the yacht club and those tidal valves. It actually kept up with the flow that we were getting from the overtopping in the seawall. So to us, that was good news, seeing some of those steps were actually able to keep up with that. We did have another odd one that we're investigating. What we were actually getting was groundwater coming up and popping some of the asphalt up by the yacht club. And we've got videos of it literally coming up from underneath and bubbling up through the asphalt. So we've got a little bit more investigation that we'll have to do to figure out how we're getting that kind of groundwater pressure coming up underneath the pavement out there. But at least we saw the positive movement that we wanted with that pump and tidal valves working the way that they should. So we're continuing to do, we've had a bunch of very intense rains here lately. And it's not just Clearwater. The county public works director, she was talking with me today. They're feeling it too. They're getting calls from private systems that are out there. So there's a number of folks right now that we're just seeing a lot of very intense rainstorms. So it's not just some flooding that we're seeing there. We're seeing it in different parts of the city. So we're actively investigating a bunch of these locations, seeing what we can do. The pumps are continuing to do what the pumps need to do out there, which is good news. Some of these really intense ones, it's backed up in the roads at a couple of locations. So we've got the better understanding of those high volume areas down Lantana, down Bruce, where that bowl is. So as we go into the permanent pump design and the ultimate long-term improvements out there, we kind of know those areas that we've got to focus into. But the good news is it's staying in the streets and it's not going into the homes, which is a good thing. So the pumps seem to be doing what we were wanting them to do. So from that side, that's all good. We did get 2 camera trailers in that we'll be using for stormwater. Probably put one on the beach. A couple of these other areas that are popping up, we'll put one so we can monitor this. We'll have real-time ability to see what's going on out there. So that'll just help us with some of the responsiveness from the crews. They can see what's going on with the streets remotely and kind of help surge out if they need to. And then the other good news story, we did submit, and hopefully we get positive news down the road, but we got the submittal in for the Resilient Florida grant, so we put in for $3.75 million for the permanent pump station. So fingers crossed we get some good news out of them, but that is submitted and in the system. So standing by if there's any questions.
Councilmember Cotton?
Thank you very much for being here. I don't know what we can do, but Marcus sits through all of our meetings every time, maybe to be able to move him up. But thank you very much for the report. I found it interesting. I was up near Carlwell this past weekend. Here we've got brand new asphalt, and I saw where it's already been cracked. So to hear that is very interesting. I look forward to hearing more about that in the future and what could be causing that, because
We're gonna go out and take some core samples out there to see if we can figure out, we don't know if somehow we're getting that groundwater pressure was significant enough that you could literally, we've got videos of it, boiling up out of the asphalt and just lifted that asphalt right up, so.
crazy. So yeah, that answers my question as to why after we just paved that road, it's already got those holes in it. So thank you very much for your report. Thank you for your diligence, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, and thanks for your diligence on this. I got a question. All your phone numbers that you have on the pumps out there, have you been getting calls from people? Has that been working fairly well?
They do, and that's usually better because that'll go to the on-call folks. Some people will email me, but I may not see that email as quick as I would like. So when they get the pumps, and our crews are pretty good that as soon as they start seeing that heavy rain, they're running out and checking on the pumps now. So I think the number of calls has come down pretty significantly, so.
Good, good. Well, thanks so much for, it's all the difference in the world having you, kind of heading this whole thing up. And I think my feedback is everybody that is being told what's going on, and it's they're not as scared as they were a couple of months ago. So it's nice to see the city is doing what they're doing.
Appreciate it. Definitely a team effort. The guys were out there till 10 o'clock last night trying to keep up after the things. So.
Good.
Yeah, that's just what I wanted to mention in terms of like acknowledging Marcus sitting through, all these meetings and stuff like that. His crews are working extended hours. I mean, like, this is not, the types of stuff that they're working on is not something that is done during a normal workday. And so a lot of late nights and extended hours to his crew, and it is making a difference. His presentations make a difference in terms of instilling the confidence and then the team out there like doing these things. I mean, it is nothing short of really incredible. And so I hope, and I know thank you only goes so far, but please make sure they understand how much we appreciate and that their work is recognized, including the extra stuff they're doing.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other city management?
No, sir.
Okay. City attorney reports?
Yes, sir.
Closing comments by council members? Councilmember Menino? Vice Mayor?
Nothing for me.
Councilmember Tickshare.
I just wanted to thank everyone who came out yesterday in torrential rains to support the arts in the Uncommon Couture here held at this library. Thank you to Mayor Rector and my fellow council members and all the community leaders that came out to not only support myself but the art community, sending the message that the arts are a very important and valued part of the city. So thank you to everyone who came out.
Councilmember Cotton?
My comment was actually going to be in regards to Lena's Uncommon Culture exhibit. If you haven't been able to see it, it is wonderful. She's done an absolutely brilliant job. It's fantastic to get to know that side of her, the artistic mind that I can never come up with, but it's fascinating to see the exhibit. If you have time, please make it down here to the Clearwater Main Library to see what she's done, because it's incredible. Great job.
And that goes on for another 3 weeks, right?
Yes, yes.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Okay, well, I have a couple things. I just got a notice today from the Visit St. Pete Clearwater that they've been talking about doing it, but they launched it today, a website called funshinesavings.com, and currently they offer 50 deals across Pinellas County. It's mainly targeted at the tourism industry, visitors to Pinellas County, but we find that a lot of our tourism comes within the county, that a lot of folks come up to Clearwater Beach for the day from within Pinellas County. So it's open to all residents of the county, not just visitors. So they've got buy one, get one free and all kinds of opportunities for our citizens at funshinesavings.com. So that was announced today, and encourage Clearwater citizens to take a look at that. And then we've got a couple of events, a lot of events coming up here in the fall. We know it's always a fun time. My favorite time to be in Clearwater is September and October, when we have a fewer people here, but we have a lot of local festivals, and the weather hopefully turns a little cooler. But a couple things happening here in the next 2 weeks. One is Clearwater Marine Aquarium has developed a new manatee rehabilitation center, and so they're going to be doing the ribbon cutting on that a week from Friday. And they now have the manatees in. Took them a while to get them in there, but they are up and running with that, so that's successful. And then we have a neighborhood in Clearwater, the Glenwood Estates neighborhood. A week from Saturday, we'll be celebrating its 100th anniversary. So we have a lot of great community neighborhoods here, and certainly congratulations to them, and a great history there in that neighborhood of Clearwater, and look forward to celebrating that with them a week from Saturday. So with that, that's all I have at the moment. And if there's nothing else to come before the council, we will adjourn the meeting.